tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
All right, here we go. This is how this works. We do a radio show 4 to 7 every single day of the week, Monday through Friday. You're listening to it right now on the Team 980 free Odyssey app. You're watching it on YouTube at the Team 980. We, obviously, because we stream it on YouTube, have video of the show. We take the highlights, the best of some certain segments. Sometimes it's the guest interview. Sometimes it's the caller segment. Sometimes it's me ranting and raving. Sometimes it's me and Anthony doing whatever it is that we do that makes you giggle. We put all that stuff, chop it up, put it on the internet, on YouTube, on my page at Craig Hoffman, which by the end of maybe even today, Anthony, will have 4,000 subscribers. So we're officially at better late than never, but subscribe now if you haven't. We also put it at the Team 980, the best of. So you leave your comments, and then we read them every Wednesday at 5:30. And Anthony, the majority of the comments this week, as a lot of our content has been around Sam Howell and Ron Rivera and their relationship and what it means for one or both of them to stay here as the guy in their job moving forward, revolve around just that. We start off with Dustin Bloggett, who said, I agree. This is in response to Linnell and I yesterday over Reaction Tuesday. I agree Ron would not only have to make the playoffs, not happening, let's be honest, but win multiple games, also not happening. Where Jihad Irish says, never say never. If by some miracle this team makes the playoffs and wins a game, Ron will get his 5th year. It ain't happening, but if it did, I don't think that there's a number. I don't think that there's like a set. If you do this, look, I'll say this. If he wins the Super Bowl, I think Ron will get his 5th year. I think at that point, he probably gets an extension. But at that point, he probably deserves it. And that is part of the reason why even though, I kind of hate to do this right now and be a buzzkill, the people that say it ain't going to happen, I tend to think that they're correct because I don't think this team, nor he as a coach, is good enough to make that happen. That's a prediction. Predictions mean nothing. They have no, in this case, this kind of prediction has no impact on the actual results and how it's going to go down. But I think making the playoffs isn't good enough. I also think winning one playoff game potentially isn't good enough. This is about consistency. This is about being good and having a chance year over year. And I think the process has already been bad enough, including how they got to Sam Howell. That script is pretty well written. I don't see a situation. Anthony, I don't know if you agree, disagree here, but I don't see a situation where outside of making the Super Bowl, Rivera is back. I guess I see it, but I don't think any of the situations where it's happening, including obviously making the Super Bowl, are remotely feasible.
I mean, I agree. I think Ron has, because again, it's all about what he's done over, the last 4 years. And if we're still in year 4, not winning the games that we're supposed to be winning, and, somehow, some way, we go on this magical run, that still doesn't do enough to, suggest that the way Ron Rivera has, built this team and the infrastructure is the solution. It's not. I mean, we got hot, and I think that's what the NFL is all about. Who gets hot, when December rolls around, January rolls around, things of that nature. But we look at the first 9 games, I don't think what Ron has done the last 4 years suggests he should stay.
Well, and that's the problem, right? Is could they get hot over the last couple of weeks and make a run and get to the playoffs and maybe even win a game? Sure. But the first 9 weeks have been the same as everything else.
Exactly.
So unless there was, here's I guess the one thing. If all of a sudden, let's say it's Eugene Shen, because that's the biggest change we've known to the organization. If all of a sudden Josh Harris is well, if we put these pieces around Rivera, he looks different. He's different as our coach. He's different in our system, the Josh Harris system, versus what he was under the Dan Snyder system. And yeah, we're not going to give him all this power that he had. Eugene is in charge, and maybe they make a change at general manager, or They do some of that stuff, and the GM is like, no, like I can work with Ron. It's fine. Let's keep the continuity for the young quarterback and see what happens moving forward. Then sure, but realistically, like Ron's not only his tenure under Dan Snyder, which I think would be easier to be like, okay, well actually it's probably a lot of ownership stuff that influenced that. It's the same as it was in Carolina. Like he's a sub 500, not by much, but sub 500 coach who has had a couple of good seasons, mostly powered by individual brilliance of Cam Newton. That's what he's been. So if that's who he is, Josh Harris ain't going to want that around. And then you get to kind of that next thought about Sam. Victorious 1944 says the only valid reason for keeping Ron is for the continuity and development for Sam Howell with Eric Bieniemy. I think for sure they need to get rid of the Martys and adjust the power structure with Ron. And then Glenn Smith, 491, says, thing is, if we actually did what you were saying, that Ron needs to keep his job, that was something that Linnell was talking about potentially with the Sam part, it's keeping EB that we probably need to prioritize in such a case that would likely mean Ron's end. This is also another, like, interesting facet of this, Ant, is like, I don't know what EB's future is. I don't know that he's done enough this year, and the next 8 games could change this dramatically. But he hasn't done enough yet where I think he's going to be a hot head coaching candidate. Like, I think his most likely job is as an offensive coordinator somewhere next year. And I don't know whether that's here or somewhere else. Because I do think that there's a really good chance that if Josh Harris moves on from Ron Rivera, of course, if the next head coach is like, hey, yeah, I would like to keep Eric Bieniemy, they have a relationship maybe, whether it's defensive head coach or another offensive head coach who wants to be able to say like, hey, EB, I'm going to trust you to run the offense so I can focus on being a head coach. Whatever it is that the situation's there, of course it could be an option. And financially, that certainly would behoove the Commanders to not have to double pay and whatever. Although if EB gets another job, I think the way that works is like his salary gets offset. Point is, like, you don't have... I would think that Josh Harris and the new GM and whatever would want a complete fresh start. You don't want someone to come in and say like, oh, that guy's been here. You probably want to keep some. Like, there's a reason Randy Jordan stuck around through multiple coaches, multiple OCs. You know, I would imagine Kotwika with how the special teams is playing right now. I'd imagine he's staying around. Is it Kotwika? Is that the right special teams coach? Or is he the old guy? Why am I now second guessing myself? That's not who the current special teams guy is.
That's the old guy.
Who? Katzer. I was picturing Nate Katzer and saying Ben Kotwika. But like as soon as I said Kotwika, I pictured Kotwika and I was like, that's not the right face. Nate Katzer. With how they're playing the last couple of years, I would imagine Nate Katzer stays around. But I don't think that, like, if I'm a new head coach and a new GM, especially with a personality as strong as Bieniemy, where he's had all this power here, like, I probably want to start over. And the good thing is, I think, for the continuity's sake, is there's enough Andy Reid disciples out there that I can go find one to be my head coach and keep a similar system to what Sam is running now and not have to completely start over for a third time.
But do you think this doesn't reek of, what the Commanders did with KOC in terms of, allowing him to leave? Well, I mean, because he was an option, though, to be on Ron's staff, right?
Yeah, no, he was. And I think that would have been smart.
But I just feel like we see that the last decade, we've seen so many offensive minds, we just let them walk out the door. And if Eric Bieniemy and this offense gets going, I think that will be
that's a different story, right? And that's why I think the next 8 games are so critical. They have a really tough schedule. They play some really tough defenses. And here's the thing. If they go out and blitz the next 8 games, let's say they go even 5-3, but the offense is putting up 27, 28 a game with Sam and Sam's cooking, now you're talking about EB potentially being a candidate here. Like, that's real. I think the difference in Sean and Kyle, I mean, Kyle's kind of his own boat. I mean, they're all in their own boat. But Kevin was the one who they really had an opportunity to keep, and Ron screwed the pooch on it. That's a young coach with a definitive head coach path in the future.
Okay.
And Eric is not as young of a coach. Like, Eric's been around. He's been coaching for 25 years at this point, almost. Well, maybe not quite that long, but coaching for 20. His career ended in the late 90s, and he went pretty much straight into coaching early 2000s. So, like, he's been coaching a long time. He's not, and while he's still waiting on his first head coaching job, and by his resume, he should have had it by now. Like, it's a bit of a different situation. Like, oh, they let the next great young offensive mind walk out the door. Like, no, Eric's a known commodity. And if you don't think he's your future head coach, then you have, like, the most important thing becomes empowering the current head coach. And to an extent, that was true with Ron. It's just Ron was bad at decision-making and decided to go with a guy he was familiar with in Scott Turner over Kevin O'Connell, who was, like, literally no one else in the league would have done that. No one else in the league would have hired Scott Turner over Kevin O'Connell, and Ron did. That's the problem. So it's not so much it's not, what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's like, it's not in a vacuum. It's not the process of the choice. It was the specifics of the choice.
Yeah.
It was Scott Turner over KOC, not letting a good offensive coach leave versus not. Yeah. Continuing on, never read the comments here on the Hoffman Show. A little bit more on Sam. Mike H. 1242 says Sam is going to be fine. He's only going to get better with experience. EB is really asking Sam to do a lot right now, which will accelerate his development sooner rather than later. I don't love this concept, and I think that they think it's true too. And it's something that I think the last couple of weeks they've actually done a good job of balancing out, putting too much on Sam's plate or putting a lot on his plate without giving him the tools to actually operate. I think that's the thing that's frustrating is, like, if you're going to put all this stuff on this guy's plate responsibility-wise, you're going to make him drop back all these times. Does he have the ability to get into the right play? Does he have the ability to change protections? Does he have the right O-line in front of him? Does he have the right balance of drop back and screens and this and that? And I think EB's called his 2 best games 2 weeks in a row, and hopefully that means that he's kind of figured it out, that he's like, hey, this is how this offense needs to run. But the idea that you just put everything on a guy, it's like, hey, here's the whole playbook, go, and that's actually going to accelerate his development. Like, no. And I would equate it to this. Like, if ultimately I need to beat an NBA player in one-on-one, I'm not really actually going to get that much better by going straight into playing one-on-one against NBA players. I'm actually better off going, like, let me play some elite high school players. And once I figure out how to beat them, let me ramp up. Because all I'm going to do if I'm playing NBA players is get my ass kicked nonstop forever and never, like, the talent gap is so wide that I'm not actually getting better. I'm just losing. And I'm stuck in place. I am the nail, they are the hammer, and I'm just getting pounded into oblivion. And we've seen that happen with quarterbacks before, where there's too much on them and they get beat up out of the league, basically. Their confidence gets shot, they get physically, changed with injuries, or they're just hurt, or they're kind of shell-shocked. Like, we've seen it. And so making sure that this is a coaching adage, like, as someone who does coaching in the physical fitness space and works with athletes, like, I want my athletes to feel success. And so finding a way to make sure that Sam feels successful, and then adding brick by brick, a little bit more of a layer by layer, is actually the better path, in my opinion and my experience, both as a coach and as someone who has been observing professional sports up close and college sports at a high level up close for a decade as a reporter and as a talk show host. That is the way to go, not just overloading guys. And I think they're doing a really good job of finding that balance. And I'm not saying that they purposely were, like, screwing Sam over to see if he could sink or swim at the start of the year. I'm just saying I think they've found that balance over the last couple of weeks and done a really nice job with that. An actual funny comment, Anthony. Often people try to be funny and they're terrible at it. This one was actually funny. The real 4744 says, Heineke forced Ron to start Howell week 17, 2022. Maybe TH8 really was the savior. Savior from Ron's inability to evaluate talent. That's why he likes versatility. He has no idea what position players should be in. Better percentage you get it right if they're versatile. Sam is probably playing shortstop if Ron had his way. Taylor Heineke gets credit for Sam. That's a wacky, funny bit.
It is indeed, because Ron loves, saying, I did this for Taylor and all of that, and we know what really happened.
Yeah, we know what's up.
We know.
Ron outsmarted himself on that one, and yeah. The position flex thing got me though, and shortstop. That's a funny line.
I haven't heard position flex in so long. I miss it, sort of, kind
of. I was thinking, we were listening to Rivera earlier, right? And he's got his more than anything else, and all his little catchphrases. I think for the Junkies drinking show this year, they should do a shot. They should have like a list of like 5 things that Ron says. If more than anything else.
The biggest thing is.
The biggest thing is bringing something completely unrelated back to Sam. We could just do those 3.
What about Because he starts every sentence with I'm
not even worried about that.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to kill him. I'm just trying to get the Junkies drunk.
Okay.
Which is the point of the show.
Yeah.
You do those 3, and then you just start week 1 press conference. You hit play. Every time that he says one of those things, you take a shot. They'll be puking before 7 a.m.
Oh, no question. No question.
They would have alcohol poisoning by 7:30. So we're not. I actually don't think we should do that.
You thought of the idea.
I did, but I also thought of it as a joke, as a funny, as a haha.
Okay.
They could do it for like 1 press conference, and then they'd just be hammered.
It would be lit.
But I don't know how quickly they want to intake. It's not a sipping situation.
Or,
Maybe they take a sip every time. That way they can survive.
Also, I think another good candidate, every time you mention Sam.
I said every time he brings it back to Sam that's unrelated.
Okay,
that was one of the 3.
Yeah.
Thanks for paying attention, Anthony.
No problem.
This time I'm gonna kick that football clear to the moon.
Job well done, Anthony. Job well done.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Maybe. Nope.
No, I need drunk Draymond real quick.
Nope.
I've asked you to put it on the board.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I would love drunk Draymond. Yup. Nope.
I got you. We got to get those.
Do you remember yesterday when Linnell tried to put himself on the board?
Yeah, he did.
And I was like, nope. All right. Back to the comments. Mr. Swervon, frequent commenter here on Never Read the Comments. The way people talk about his mistakes, you would think no quarterback in history made those mistakes. Josh Allen is in year what, and he still makes those mistakes at his franchise QB level. You questioned to him, which he never, or questioned to him being Linnell, I believe. And actually, no, sorry. To Michael, this was on our interview with Michael Phillips. You questioned to Michael, which he never answered, but really answered by saying all that. He proved your point. People are giving Bryce Young excuses for his terrible mistakes. You don't hear what this guy is saying. It's, he doesn't have weapons. That doesn't excuse the blatant mistakes he's making, but he's the number 1 pick, so he gets the benefit of the doubt. Thanks, Craig, for throwing the lob, and Michael slam dunking your point. The point being that, like, if Sam Howell was a top pick in one of the last 2 drafts, and he was playing at the level he currently is right now, you'd be psyched. The 5th round pick thing is relevant. Yes, he was. It's relevant because his contract is cheaper. Love that. CJ Stroud, contract is more expensive. Bryce Young, contract more expensive. Even like Will Levis, slightly more expensive. But Sam is about as cheap as you can get for a quarterback in the NFL. And yet he's playing at a young, like, developing superstar level. And that's great. So yeah, that's the big thing that I'm on right now is like, let's move away from talking about the mistakes and 5th round pick. Is he good enough? Is he not? Let's talk about him as a young quarterback and whether the mistakes he's making are the types of things you can improve on and go from there. And I think that the answer is yes. And he's getting better in some of the areas. It's not going to be linear. He might take 5 sacks against Seattle this weekend, but it is getting better, and better is, better. GB9589. Sam Howell is the franchise QB. Funny how the national media just can't admit they were wrong regarding our 5th-round QB. I've been around a long time, and the good ones show right away with or without a good offensive line. This kid is NFL number 2 passing yards after 9 games. He is young, but a lot of fun. That they show it early thing, I think there is definitely some truth to that. Like, the guys who have it, they show you. And Clinton made that point earlier when he joined us. If you missed it, Clinton Yates, back at 4:30. That is also already up on our YouTube page at Craig Hoffman and at the Team 980 if you want to check it out. But you're right. Like, yes, it is pretty apparent he's got the mental stuff and like the demeanor and kind of the processing ability to make it in this league. But the reason I wanted to pick this comment is I hate when people blame the media for stuff that's not the media's fault. And it happens a lot when fans get off the hook for stuff because social media. I'm like, okay, so it's your fans who have Twitter accounts or Instagram accounts or TikTok or whatever. Like, that's not the media. It's not those of us with credentials who show up and actually cover games and ask questions. And the national media didn't make Sam Howell a 5th-round pick. We don't pick. I don't have any influence on where anyone goes in the draft. You know who has influence? NFL teams. It's the actual teams that made him a 5th-round pick because they went through 4 rounds of the draft and nobody drafted him. So don't blame the media for stuff that's not the media's fault. Be smarter, be better, don't be silly. That's my quick defense of the media rant. And then last but not least, just a fun thing that Anthony, I said I was going to do this week, and I forgot to. But the good news is we had some YouTube commenters that checked in with us on 1st and 10, where I said, hey, I'm pretty sure Sam Howell's record through 10 starts has got to be one of the better ones in recent Washington memory for quarterbacks that have made it 10 starts. Turns out, Scott, 81 or 8-1-100 or 1,000. Scott, you got a lot of numbers. Scott, 811,000 says, Jay Schrader was 8-2, I believe, but that's off the top of my head. I'm drinking beer. And then Scott, either still drunk or drinking or sobered up later, came back and said Schrader was 9-1, and I double checked. So there you go.
Oh, wow.
Thanks to Scott and his beers, who's now apparently our research department. Maybe we can pay him in beer.
That wasn't a bad guess.
Scott, we're not paying you. Don't leave a comment on the. Actually, leave a comment just to let us know you watched the whole thing. Just leave a little beer cheers. Actually, I'm going to steal a bit from JP Finley right now. If you made it this far, I don't owe you a beer, but I would like for you in the comments of this video just to leave the beer emoji. So if you're watching this if you're listening to this live on the radio right now, this is going to make no sense. If you're watching live on YouTube right now, it doesn't really matter. But if you're watching this on demand later, so it's not 5:55 p.m. on Wednesday, November 8th, I want you to leave a comment in the comments section with a little cheers deal, the beer emoji, to let us know that you actually watched the whole video. That is Never Read the Comments for this week. We do it each and every week, 5:30 on Wednesdays live here on the Team 980. The Hoffman Show, of course, daily, 4 to 7 p.m.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.